in Star Trek II, it makes it respectable to be over 35.
But not much. It's, the movie is about youth and old age and death and love.
And that middle age group, the way that that is handled in the movie, for instance, you with the glasses, did you have any reservations about that aspect, that maybe it would be a turnoff to young people?
Well, it in fact was suggested not to do it at one point by some people who thought they had my best interests at heart. My feeling has always been that the more human you can make a character, the more vulnerable, the more identifiable, the better it is. And so we sought all means possible to do that.
Rolling. Marker.
And 3, 2, 1, pop!
Tactical. Inoperative. Raise the shields. As I feared, sir, not functional. I'm reducing speed.
And cut!
In the case of Star Trek, the chemistry is unique. The chemistry between the characters and the kinds of plots and kinds of adventures that we can get into and do successfully and do well. But nevertheless, when you've been apart for some time and a new executive producer comes on the scene, Harve Bennett I'm talking about, a new director who has never directed Star Trek before and never directed any of these actors before, Nicholas Meyer. The cast is the same. A new writer, I don't think Jack Sowards ever wrote Star Trek before. There's always the question of, do we have it this time? Is it going to be there again? I would say on this particular picture, I felt very hopeful from the very first day because the script was in shape. The story had a beginning, middle, and end. It had some charm. It had some humor. The characters were in focus in their relationships with each other. The cast was up and excited, and Harve Bennett created a wonderful atmosphere. He's the producer of the film. Created a wonderful atmosphere for us to work in. Nick Meyer came to Star Trek with a tremendous amount of energy and love for Star Trek, kind of almost like a kid being introduced into this world and saying, wow, I get to work in Star Trek, you know, I get to make a Star Trek movie. So that excitement was contagious, and I think it's in the film.
Basically what Star Trek was the presentation of moral or ethical human dilemmas in a kind of pop allegorical format. And there were certain philosophical underpinnings to all this, the essential belief in the goodness and future of mankind and of men of goodwill and so forth, or species of goodwill, that were all very appealing.
Of course, the movie Star Trek II has been getting a lot of publicity even before it's open because of the ending. How do you feel about that, Bill? Do you wish all that controversy hadn't opened up at this point?
Well, we knew it would. It's not sure that Spock dies. The audience themselves have to go to make up their own mind.
Looking back to the first Star Trek, and you saw yourself in the mirror with your Spock makeup.
Strange, yeah.
Reaction?
Well, it was kind of scary. When my children saw me in that makeup and my wife saw me in that makeup for the first time, they thought, oh, what is Daddy doing here? Because the character had to be experienced totally. You couldn't just look at this character and get any sense of where this character was going to go. It wasn't until after the show went on the air and people began to identify with the character and respond well to the character that we knew we had something. But we were taking a chance. I mean, with the pointed ears, I could have come off as Dumbo of the Year and been finished. You know? I mean, that could have been the end of that. I could have been out of work for years to come. It worked out fine.
How did you get into the character?
Well, it was a long process. A lot of conversations with Gene Roddenberry, who was the producer at that time, and with the writers, experimentation with the makeup people. For me, the makeup is very important in any role I play, the makeup and the wardrobe. I sit in the makeup room in the chair, watching the makeup go on in the mirror and begin to get some sense of the style, attitude, posture of the character, the internal thinking of the character. And with Spock, it was helpful to be part of that process. The makeup was evolved over a long period of time. It didn't fall into place very quickly. In fact, we actually did a first Star Trek pilot, as most Star Trek fans know, where Spock looked quite different. And some of that footage was used later in the series as a flashback, and there was a difference in the look. The haircut was different, the eyebrows were different. It took time to refine it and get it just right.
You know, I've always loved the character of Bones, and I love your approach to the role and the way you carry it off. But you get all the funny lines.
Well, I don't know. Well, Bill gets the funny line in this one every now and then. But I enjoy doing it for that reason. I think that it's vital that there be some humor in a situation going on, such I think it kind of lifts it or, you know, takes the heat off of it a bit. But he's been a joy to play because he's had an opportunity to do some comedy, do some drama, you know, the whole bit. Everything but a musical so far.
Maybe Star Trek 3, you'll do a little tap dance.
Possibly. Could be. You never know.
Action. That young man, he's my son. Fascinating.
I thought after the other one that perhaps it would be a long time if indeed we did one at all again. This one came as quite a surprise, but I feel real good about this one. I think that this one is really into the Star Trek feeling like the old show had, naturally on a motion picture basis. But it seems like everybody is working well together, and it's a very exciting script, and we all feel very good about it.
One of the things that we hoped to achieve in Star Trek II was a return to a kind of tradition. Now, that doesn't mean that we will restore the original sets and go back to the original uniforms, because Star Trek, like any other legendary property, changes over the years, and the characters are older, and presumably Starfleet has progressed since 14 years ago. But in tone, there are new uniforms. The uniforms are more reminiscent of the original uniforms. The movie did a certain look. That look wasn't as closely related to the original series. Many Trekkers felt disappointed in that. I hope they'll like this look, which is very familiar and yet new. I personally felt that among some of the flaws of the first movie, I couldn't comprehend not hearing the Star Trek music. I think in that people who love the show felt similarly. To do Star Trek without doing some of the original music is like doing The Lone Ranger without William Tell. There is a tradition, and we are very anxious to maintain that tradition without being strangled, of course, by it.
I don't know if it's a secret or can't be described as a secret, but my feeling about it is that I think that there was something about that show that that struck a chord practically with not only the youth, but all ages. I know that in our personal appearances where we go, there are people there that are from 5 years to 75 years. And they all seem to respond to it, and it also seems to be the same thing around the world from all the mail we get. The reaction's the same in Germany, Italy, France. I think it's a thing of comradeship. It certainly gave the youth something to look forward to, because, let's face it, that's really where it's at now.
I'm not terribly interested in science fiction myself, but I'm very interested in interpersonal relationships. And that's what this movie's about. Star Trek II, The Undiscovered Country.
No, I have played in the past antagonists, or let's call them villains, and I realized very early in my career that a villain doesn't think that he's a villain. He does villainous things, but he doesn't act villainously. Otherwise, he would not be a human being. And when I play good guys, I try to also find some fault in them, because nobody is totally good or totally bad. This man had a distorted resentment that, of course, his villainy becomes more obvious. But he doesn't think of himself as a villain. He thinks that he's doing the right thing. Vengeance for the injustice to his wife, the death of his wife, you know.
What can we say about Star Trek and the effect that it has on young people who love it so much?
The impact is enormous, and I do feel a sense of responsibility. I think it's a positive impact. I think it opens the imagination to ideas, scientific ideas, philosophical ideas, social ideas, and I think hopeful is the key word. Hopeful and futuristic. We're here. We exist. There is reason to be motivated and to try to learn, to do things, and to work together and to explore. For me, I think the series is one that bears up over long periods of time for a couple of good reasons. In the first place, a young child, 10, 12-year-old child, can watch the show and be entertained by the adventure of it, and then 6 or 8 years later see the same episode again and realize that there was an idea in that adventure that had to do with something that perhaps a 10 or 12-year-old might not be aware of, but they discover again later as they grow. And I think that's one of the reasons people enjoy seeing the show over and over again, to pick up on ideas that perhaps they weren't aware of at an earlier age.
In your own opinion, could Star Trek go on without Spock?
No, and I don't believe it will.
So
If there's more Star Treks, there'll be Spock.
Everybody would like to say goodbye to Leonard. He finished in picture.
Goodbye, everybody. Thank you. I'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Yeah. See you again. Okay.
What did the revival of Star Trek do to you personally, do to your life?
It was a mixed blessing. Up until I had done Star Trek, I was a very solid working actor in this town and a lead heavy in a lot of things. And there's no doubt that it categorized me to a great degree. But at the same time, the show is such a phenomenal thing that I think that I have experienced something that very few actors really have experienced as a result of Star Trek. I mean, it's almost an indescribable feeling, the way it seems to affect the people. They just simply ask us to be secretive about it for reasons of their own. It is difficult. Wherever you go, you'll question about it. And I've just tried as best I can not to discuss it, because I don't think we even know what the hell we're going to do.
Beyond the darkness, beyond the human evolution, is Khan, a genetically superior tyrant. Exiled to a barren planet, banished by a starship commander he is destined to destroy. Left for dead, he has survived.
I'll chase him round the moons of Nibia and round the Antares maelstrom and round perdition's flames before I give him up. There she is. There she is. Fire!
Shield's collapsing, Captain.
Can you give me phaser power? A few shots, sir.
Not enough against their shields.
The base is starboard.
Scotty, I need warp speed in 3 minutes or we're all dead.
I've done far worse than kill you. I've hurt you. And I wish to go on hurting you. I shall leave you as you left me, marooned for all eternity, buried alive, buried alive.
Sean! Sean!
At the end of the universe lies the beginning of vengeance. Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan.